it was a trip I had been looking forward to for months, a weekend getaway in the Colorado Rockies with my friends, Tyler and Mia. The idea was simple. No phones, no distractions, just nature and some good company. We hiked deep into the forest to a spot Tyler had heard about from a coworker, a place so remote that even the park rangers rarely ventured there. The first night passed uneventfully. We laughed around the campfire, told ghost stories, and fell asleep under a canopy of stars. By the second night, things felt different. The air was heavier, and the usual forest sounds, crickets, owls, rustling leaves, were gone. We joked about it at first, calling it the calm before the storm. But by midnight, that calm had turned into an eerie silence. I was sitting by the fire, staring into the flames when I saw it. A shadow standing just beyond the circle of light. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I blinked, leaned forward, and strained to see more clearly. The figure didn't move. "Hey, Ty," I whispered, nudging him. "Do you see that?" Tyler turned, squinting into the darkness. His face dropped. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice firmer than I expected. The figure didn't respond. It stood there, tall and thin, like a silhouette carved from the night itself. Tyler grabbed his flashlight and aimed it directly at the shadow, but the beam seemed to dissolve before reaching it. That's when Mia gasped. "It moved," she hissed. Sure enough, the shadow shifted, quickly, unnaturally, darting behind a tree. My heart pounded as Tyler and I stood ready to confront whatever it was. But when we approached the tree, there was nothing there. The rest of the night was a blur of fear. We kept the fire blazing and sat with our backs to each other, eyes scanning the darkness. When dawn finally broke, we found bare human footprints circling our campsite. Footprints that started and stopped abruptly, as if the person had vanished into thin air. We packed up and left without a word. None of us ever spoke about that night again. I've always loved solo camping. There's something about being alone in nature, away from the chaos of everyday life, that feels like therapy. But after what happened in the Appalachian Mountains, I've never camped alone again. It was my second night in the woods. I had set up camp in a beautiful clearing surrounded by towering pines. The day had been perfect. Clear skies, a gentle breeze, and the soft hum of wildlife all around me. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere shifted. I woke up at 2 a.m. to a sound that made my blood run cold. A scream. It was distant but unmistakably human, filled with pain and desperation. My first thought was that someone was in trouble. Grabbing my flashlight, I unzipped my tent and stepped out. "Hello?" I called into the darkness. My voice felt small, swallowed by the vastness of the forest. The scream came again, louder this time and closer. It wasn't just a scream, it was distorted, like it was coming through an old radio. I felt my stomach twist as goosebumps rose on my arms. Then came the footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching through the leaves behind me. I spun around, my flashlight trembling in my hand. There was nothing there. For what felt like hours, I stood frozen, listening to the sounds of something, or someone, moving just out of sight. When the first rays of sunlight pierced through the trees, the noises stopped. I packed up and hiked out of there as fast as I could. Weeks later, I learned that the area had a dark history. Several hikers had gone missing over the years, their bodies never found. To this day, I can't forget the sound of that scream. It was supposed to be a romantic getaway. Me and my boyfriend, Eric, camping in the remote forests of northern Sweden. The area was known for its untouched beauty, with vast lakes and dense woods. The first day was magical. We set up our tent near a lake, swam in the cool water, and cooked dinner over a campfire. As the sun set, the forest came alive with sounds: birds chirping, leaves rustling, the distant howl of a wolf. But as the night wore on, the sounds changed. They became wrong. It started with faint whispers, like someone muttering just out of earshot. Then, around midnight, I noticed movement in the trees. At first, I thought it was an animal. But when I looked closer, I saw him, a man standing between the trees. He was tall, wearing tattered clothes that blended with the shadows. "Eric," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Do you see that?" Eric turned and froze. "Who the hell is that?" he muttered. The man didn't move. He just stood there, staring at us. "Hey," Eric called out, stepping toward him. But the man didn't respond. Instead, he slowly stepped back into the darkness and disappeared. We decided to retreat to our tent, locking it up as tightly as we could. All night, we heard shuffling outside, sticks snapping, leaves crunching, and a low, guttural sound I can't even describe. When we finally gathered the courage to step outside at dawn, our campsite was in shambles. Our gear had been moved, the fire pit had been scattered, and footprints surrounded the tent. As we packed up to leave, I looked back one last time. In the distance, standing just beyond the tree line, was the man. He didn't move, didn't wave, just watched as we drove away. We never went back, and even now, years later, I still see his face in my nightmares.